So as those of you who hang out in these Zooms with me on occasion or often know I'm um, always talking about how there's just one thing here. It's not really a thing. Um, well, I guess we could call it a thing. This reality appearing as everything, this miracle shining forth as everything. And I'll use different words to, even though it's utterly beyond words, I'll use different words to try to point to um, what's common to all of this seeming multiplicity and diversity, and as a way of starting to orient to and become more acquainted and familiar with the singularity of this, the oneness of this, if you would. And last week, I think it was last week, the word I was using was appearing, and I was inviting folks to do this little shift, this little reorientation from our focus on what we think is appearing and how we're describing it and all the ideas we have about it, including, is this something I want, or is this something I need to have more of or less of? And is this a potential issue or threat or benefit, or all of this evaluation of all that's appearing? And orienting instead to just the sheer fact that what's common about everything is that it is appearing. Whatever it is, the engine underlying all of this that's giving rise to all of this. This is the appearing, the emanation of reality. And I love that. I love that particular pointer, the appearing. There's something about it that feels very alive to me and very vibrant and luminous. It's appearing. That's its luminosity. Another really synonym for that appearing that I wanted to highlight this morning is perceiving. Our attention again tends to be on what we think is being perceived, right? The objects of experience and how we sort of categorize them, and the hierarchy that tends to get generated based on, all sorts of ideas and conditioned notions we hold about what's being perceived. And so the invitation this morning is to similarly shift from what's being perceived and what you think about it and how you're describing and labeling it. I mean, all of that can be there and it's not necessarily going to go away, but just this little reorienting to the sheer fact of perceiving itself, which amazingly is ever present. And it's ever present without having to do anything to make it present, without having to meditate, without having to inquire, without having to attend a Zoom meeting like this. All that's ever happening in one very real, profound sense is perceiving. And just let yourself feel that ever present perceiving, the flow of perceiving, right? Ceaseless flow, ever changing flow, but ceaseless, always here. And you can just relax into that because it's happening spontaneously and effortlessly. So no effort needs to be applied. It's already here before you take one step towards noticing the perceiving. It's here as this instant. This instant is the perceiving. And it's here, right? It's here instantaneously, inexplicably. Without our putting it here, it's here. And all that we think of as ourselves, the body, the mind, the personality, all of that is more, more of what's being perceived, but here is this perceiving all of it, perceiving us, perceiving the world, perceiving all this complexity. And you feel that perceiving. You are feeling that perceiving. You are engaged in and as this ever-present perceiving, right? Every instant is that, the perceiving of the moment. There's nothing else but that. Whether what's being perceived is being described as the greatest thing that's ever crossed our path or the most horrible thing we've ever encountered, there's the perceiving. Constant flow of perceiving. You can't escape it. You can't really find it either because it's all that exists. Can't lose it. Everything's slipping away, right? Constantly in its dynamism, its ever-changing nature, but the perceiving has this sense of constancy to it. What's being perceived is always vanishing, and yet the perceiving, feel that how it remains. The perceiving is what's occurring, no matter what's being thought, what's being felt emotionally, what's being sensed. There is the thread of perceiving appearing as all of it, running through all of it. You can't really have more or less of the perceiving. It's not a thing that can be increased by practicing it. You see, it's inseparable from the appearance of the moment. That's why I said appearing and perceiving are, I use them as synonyms essentially. The moment, the appearance of the moment is the perceiving of the moment, isn't it? Here's the moment being. Here it is, this instant, magically here, mysteriously here, right? And its appearance is its being perceived, right? This is the emphasis in awareness in so many teachings. There's a certain kind of awareness that feels like we can practice it and cultivate it and somehow create more of it through engaging it like a muscle that we're building, more awareness, more awareness. And that's also the awareness that can feel like, oh, I became unaware, like it went away somehow. But the perceiving or the awareness that I'm talking about is not anything that it's indestructible. It's not, it has nothing to do with us. It's not anything that we're creating or anything that we could diminish through lack of attention or something. It's just here. It's like the sun shining and you nothing. It's just shining. It just shines. No matter what we do, it just keeps shining. And this perceiving, the light of perceiving just keeps shining, keeps shining. You feel that? Lighting up the world. No matter what's happening in the seeming circumstances of our life, in any given moment, there is the perceiving, the absolute staggering miracle of perceiving. And feel that the aliveness of perceiving, the this faculty of reality, you could say, of knowing, perceiving. Feel it. What's perceiving this moment? What is that? What is perceiving? not as an analytical question, as an experiential question. It's it's funny. It's like if you feel what's here, as I'm often saying, just feel the presence of what's here. And we could call it the moment, the feeling of the moment. And yes, it comes in many different shapes and forms and flavors, right? That we can sense and many of which we can seem to describe or um, categorize in the different ways that we do. But if you feel what's most primal, this felt sense of the presence of reality, it's almost like it's like a jewel, the jewel of reality. And this jewel of reality has one way I talk about it is like it's got these primal facets, the facets of the jewel of this moment. One of its facets is just its sheer existence. Here it is. That's like a facet. We can tune into that sense of the existence of the moment, the beingness of the moment, just feeling that, right? Here it is. Yes, it always looks different. Those are all the flavors of reality, of the flavors of life. But at the core, this primal aspect of each flavor is its existence, right? And it's the same with perceiving. Perceiving is just like another facet of the jewel of this reality, this singular reality. The moment's existence is its perception too. It's being perceived, right? Isn't the moment being perceived? Here it is. That's what I mean by is like a primal facet of this reality is it's being perceived. Just as its existence, its sheer existence is another of its primal facets. And feel how it's here because it's inherent to reality, this perceiving. I mean, try to turn it off. There's no off switch to the perceiving any more than there's an off switch to being, right? They're really synonyms. Waking, dreaming, even deep sleep, all of it's being perceived. All of it's present. All of it is. That's the one thing. It is ultimately utterly beyond any way we might characterize it. It's just this inexplicable presence that's not presence as a state, but presence as the very basis of everything we might call a state of mind. And so the particular state of mind that you're in is irrelevant for our purposes. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing. Like feel the freedom of that. It does not matter what you're experiencing because here is the miracle of perceiving, the miracle of existence, the miracle of appearing. It's not dependent, it's not conditioned by your experience. So, which is why it's never absent. This is the very ground of all of our experience, which is why it cannot be absent.